Hey guys, welcome to the woods. Beautiful day today. No humidity, light breeze, birds are happy. It's a good day to be in the woods. Welcome to the woods. All right, see that? Anyway, all right, so I like to talk about stuff that, can be encouraging and get people to sort of ease up a little bit on their life. And really, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm very much a doer. I've always been interested in spirituality. I've always studied spirituality. I've taken lots of Bible study classes. I jumped in on the New Age movement stuff and learned all about, the New Age views. And I followed channeled information and read books from channeled people. And I'm used to holding weird pieces out there. They're like, that doesn't fit to what I was taught, or that doesn't fit to my picture of how I see, my relationship to God and who Jesus was and all that type of stuff. That doesn't really fit. So I would hold these pieces, and then over time, other things would latch to it. Next thing I know, it's like, oh, I got a whole piece of puzzle I can put down here on my board because it's all interlocked now, and then you own it. And then you just have a bigger sense of who I really am. And from that bigger sense of who I really am, I then want to change the way I act based on the way I view who I am now. That's called growing up, I guess. So a little bit of background. I really got latched on to this guy, Edgar Cayce, when I was very young, and he's called the Sleeping Prophet. And he channeled all kinds of information, and you can look him up. And anyway, he was like in, during World War I or II, and, those days, he was doing a lot of good. The guy was helping a lot of people, and he had a great heart, and you can't take anything away from that guy. But anyway, he talked about some things that he said when he came out of trance, and he read what he spoke because he had a stenographer from like day one when he started giving information. And he talked about his sort of uncomfortableness, like, well, I don't understand that, because he was a very Christian, very conservative, active in his church kind of guy. And they didn't really talk about or think much about or definitely weren't integrating any thoughts about reincarnation or the influence of the planets around here on Earth and how, the mind and the where you came from, who, your soul's purpose can have an effect on your health because you go a wrong direction. That's what happened to him. He was going a wrong direction in his life, and that's how he ended up getting sick. And then he healed himself through a trance that someone had just put on him, or, taught him, or, they did whatever. So let's just move on. You can study about the guy. But anyhow, he had a little bit of struggle with things as well. And so I started very early sort of mixing this whole thing about planets. And so much stuff has come to me. So like, I must have 4 or 5 different places that I could give you to research this process of saying that basically planet Earth is rising in its vibration, which also has to do with its location in the galaxy, and it's influenced by the planets going around us. And when we pass on to the other side, we are working through these. Edgar Cayce basically said that you go to these different planets for different learnings, and depending on where you were, what planet you came from, being in the proximity of, not living on that planet like in school, but it's like that same type of thing. But anyway, vibrations have to intermix, that are they have to match. So whatever vibration you're sort of dealing with here on Earth, you get to mix with other vibrations. It's a cool thing he explained. But you also, when you pass, then you go into like vibration. The beauty of planet Earth is you get with mixed vibration. So it's a good chance to sort of jump to different classes and grades and experiences and things like that. So if that all seems weird and confusing, forget about it. Who really cares? But here's a point I want to share with you, or I want to chew on with you. So I don't really own this one 100%. Being a little bit more of the doer side, I like to have, things that I do, accomplish things, and I'm trying to cut that from my umbilical cord of my memory of who I think I am and how I think this whole planet works. Because what I'm getting a lot of information now, and have really been for years, is that there's something magical about just being. And it's not about doing that makes big changes on planet Earth. So heard some stuff again today, and I was like, I want to really apply that and see how that sort of filters out. But here's the point. The planet Earth is rising in its vibration. And I've talked about this point before. As we get, if I'm living a life that's disconnected from the who I really am, from the God source. So I came here with an intention to be the most loving version of Dan Hicks I could possibly imagine in this lifetime. And I need to, if I don't exhibit that, if I don't reach for those high ideals, then I'm going to be disconnected from the who I really am. And the disconnecting from who I really am is what causes a lot of stress. And it'll cause, this is what Edgar Cayce talked about too, is that it causes physical ailment. A lot of your physical ailment is because you're disconnected from who you really are. You're not living in accord with who you really are. And so this morning, this guy was talking about how planet Earth it was some channeled long time information. I don't remember who it was even, but I could look through my YouTube stuff and find it again. But it was stuff I already knew. Edgar Cayce says everything we've already known. You're just remembering who you are, remembering where we came down to this place on Earth where we get disconnected from the God source, and we get an opportunity to say, I'm going to rediscover who I really am. I'm going to reemerge as the love being that I really am. So anyway, take that for what you want. Let's move on to this example that I want to sort of chew on with you. If the planet is rising in its vibration, one of the things that they're saying is that when you get a disconnect where the planet's vibration is risen, but the people living on the planet have not integrated the new higher vibration, the more, let's say planet Earth has moved into a love vibration, and we're still existing and conducting ourselves in a less than loving direction. So we need to catch up. So that tension between the two makes illness. Same thing happens with us. And so the planet vibrationally is being affected by us, and it affects us. There's a homeostasis that happens between these vibrations. And so planet Earth, basically, what this guy's saying is that planet Earth is heating up. That's what I remember was, like in the early 80s, they started they were kind of like scientist type people. It was very scientifically documented, but anyway, they channeled this guy, Ra, R-A. So it's teachings of Ra, really kind of deep and heavy, and that's the kind of thing I want to just, sit around and listen to on a, Friday night. But anyhow, but nothing in there that I hadn't heard other places. But basically saying that the planet will heat up if the disconnect happens from the high vibration of the planet, because it's moving in its position in the galaxy, and we're still conducting ourselves not in that high vibration yet. Interesting, isn't it, that the planet is heating up? But anyway, it's having to compensate for our lower vibration. And it's much like he was really connecting it to human disease, same kind of thing. Like if you get a cancer or things like that, that's a hot spot. Most all illness is a hot spot. So he's basically saying that the planet is heating up the same way there's a disconnect. So here was the interesting part that I wanted to chew on. He was then saying that to help with that, you just need a few people. So, what had happened is souls have come to the planet and are around with us now that are really highly attuned to the ability to correct that imbalance. So, and he's saying that basically they don't need to do anything. They don't need to say anything. They're not going to stand out. They're not going to give a message. They're not going to do anything. And they often don't even know they're doing it, I think. Everybody kind of comes in and sort of like disconnects and lost as to who they are. But you might find yourself, sitting in your basement your whole life, just sort of thinking positive, loving things about your planet and the people on it, and praying, that we're all sort of rising in our vibration. And then someone shows you this reading, and you'd say, yeah, that's me. I guess I have really kind of known that's what I'm doing. Does that help at all? I don't know. So, but you take a person, and I guess here's the struggle. So you're saying, he's saying, Ra was saying, that these souls that are on planet Earth right now, and there's not a whole lot of them, they're the ones that are sort of holding the temperature down of the planet and allowing us the time to integrate into the new higher vibration. And that's a lot of, and it's going to cause a heating of the planet and a lot of disruption in the planet, and natural disasters and all that type of stuff. Edgar Cayce, when I was a teenager, said our mindset, our sense of who we are has a huge impact on not just the planet, but on solar flares and all types of stuff. So, you know, that's kind of weird stuff that you're not going to hear on your Sunday sermon. But anyway, let's just keep going, right? What the heck? What do we got to lose? So I just thought it was so cool that it's the being of a high vibration that does way more than the doing or teaching or being or helping or whatever. And I'm such a doer that I've been really sort of latching on to any time somebody's talking about the power of being as opposed to the power of doing. And I think I know I've shared this before, but maybe you've seen, for the last, couple years, I've really been on this sort of journey of like letting go and trying to just focus more on meditation. I'm not really naturally a meditation guy, but prayer and spirituality and all that type of stuff, and self-discipline and trying to get myself, I was much more about, trying to get myself to behave and cooperate and things like that. So I sort of dropped some of those paradigms long ago. It's like, anyway, this concept of being and the power that has on the planet, that a few people can change this whole paradigm and allow the whole, all humans on the planet to become more in tuned and tapped in, turned on. I'm trying to get people to take a little time to meditate and relax and focus on the God source from whence they came and their connection, the soul's purpose, and all that type of stuff, and loving on yourself and focusing on your breath and all the, these things that, you just spend a lot of time. And then here comes this guy who's, sitting in his basement, and he's having a profound impact on our natural ability to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on without even doing anything or saying anything. And I'm like, really? That's pretty cool. Maybe I'll take that job. Well, I got to thinking about Jesus, and I thought, when you think about it, really, 33 years of his known time on the planet, 30 of those, we don't know what he did. He didn't say anything to anybody. He didn't really do anything that we know of. So for 3 years, he did walk around, and he did perform some miracles. But when I was thinking about it today, I'm like, so he definitely performed miracles, and they're crazy miracles, but he could have done a lot more, apparently. I think it was withholding a little bit of his special powers. He could have healed a lot more people. He could have proven a lot more things. He could have, documented his abilities and things like that if he really wanted to say, here's what I want you to know. And he could have given his message much more clearer. Most everything was all verbal at that time, but it could have been documented. And instead, he just passed his information. He didn't say, hey, write this down. Here's a point, don't forget about this. And, he wasn't like teaching a class, like we had to understand him. And we wrote pretty much everything about him, 100 years after it started, really, the writings, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all was like 100 to 200 years after his death. So he didn't seem to be all that much about his verbal message was all that critical. But we know he talked about weird stuff we don't really get, like, I like to play with funny words, so let's play with the funny words. He liked to open a portal for man's evolution and for us to rise to a higher vibration, and did all kinds of magical stuff that we don't really understand. But and we could talk about it all, but that gets into semantics about how people want to say what Jesus did, and I don't want to get into that right now. So the point I was going to get to is I would say he fits that criteria of a guy who was just about being. What he did for the planet and for humans is astronomical, but you think about it, wasn't what he had to say. It wasn't anything about that. It's more about who he was and how he you know, how he vibrated. And, you know, I think he accomplished everything probably in his first 30 years, and those other 3 years were just like, you know, let me just go out there and pass a message that it's another phenomena, but we always seem to do it. But when somebody wants to give a message of, you know, I don't know if I want to get into all that, but, you know, he certainly knew that he was going to rattle our cages a little bit of we want a simplistic view of life, and no one wants to be, you know, confused. And we also, I guess, you know, the thing is, we wanted to, we were really, you know, the churches at the time were pitching a way to behave like this. And he was not about behave like this. He was just about, you know, relax, focus on the love. Love is all there is. Relax. You know, when they got worried about not being able to catch fish, he said, relax, there's plenty. Worried about not having enough food, relax, there's plenty. Worried about running out of wine, relax, there's plenty. Worried about death, relax. We can bring him back if you want to. But he didn't go doing it all the time because it wasn't really necessary. But that sense of, relax. That's my focus. I'm going to go with a relax. See if I can integrate some of that relaxation, love energy, and just focus on the effect that has on the whole planet. I'm going to try to cool this planet down. Try to get her to just relax, sister. We're coming. We're coming. We'll catch up. All right. I don't know. What do you think about that? All right, guys. I think I'm going to talk about that again some more because I'm still sort of just thinking about it. All right. Have a good day. Talk to you tomorrow.